Hello and welcome to our final week of Writing for Media. I figured I'd do a quick video since it's our final week and go through some of the topics. This week in particular, we're talking about adapting your writing, your screen, you're specifically taking your screenplay and adapting it to a different form. Most likely it's going to be either, adapting it over to television or sticking with a film format, whether it's a short film or a long form film. It's basically all the same. It's just kind of the way the beats are done and that the way that the structure is done is slightly different. But even if we're writing, for a TikTok or an Instagram reel, it still boils down to the same basic concept, which is a beginning, a middle, and an end, which is like specifically what we've been talking about over the semester. And then building all of those elements into there just in a shorter form. So today specifically, this week, we're going to go through adapting your writing to mostly television and film. We'll talk a little bit about some other stuff as well. And then our final assignment is to write a 5-page screenplay that will be due, I believe it's the 10th. We'll take a look on Canvas there and make sure that we have the specific date. But I think it's 10 December is our last day that you can submit stuff for this class. And so as long as you get it in by midnight, I'll be able to grade it in time to get it submitted for all the finals. And that will be considered as our final for this course. It's not a test or anything like that. I think it's much more important that you can actually, demonstrate a nice, concise 5-page screenplay. And you can find the specifics for all of the constraints and what's going to be required of it in Canvas. So for today, as we're going through, I basically figured I would walk through some of these slides and just give you a little bit more detail as you're reading through them. And this will cover both this week and next week, and then you will only have the actual 5-page screenplay due. So you have plenty of time to get that done, or adapt something that you already have written, or continue something that you've been doing over the semester. If you've liked one of the stories that you've already submitted and you got a good grade on it, you're happy with it, I gave you some feedback to keep working on it. You can either develop that into your 3-page screenplay into a 5-page, or create something totally new. It's completely up to you. And feel free to ask me any questions via email if you have any. Speaking of which, great way to get a hold of me is email a413@pasadena.edu. You're also welcome to connect with me on @FilmProfessor on Instagram. I think there's an underscore in there on Instagram and Twitter. On TikTok, it is just Film Professor, no spaces. And then I build screeners on Letterboxd. I love Letterboxd, so I build screening lists there, and I believe I have one for this class. I'm almost positive. But even if I don't, there's plenty of other lists from my other courses on there that you're more than welcome to look at. People are always asking me for good reference movies, like the ones that we screen during the semester. I kind of build lists out of those and then put them in Letterboxd for people to look at. And give comments on and feedback. There's an underscore on there on Instagram and Twitter. On TikTok, it's kind of like a social kind of build lists out of those and then put them in Letterboxd. Cool. So you can check, I'm Film Professor on there as well. And most of the links should all be on this page that I've been including all semester. So there's an underscore in there weekly on workflow. Again, this week we're talking about how do you adapt your movies, your screenplay to a movie or television or something else. There's an underscore in there. Weekly workflow. Again, this week we're talking about how do you adapt your movies, your screenplay to a movie or television or something else. There's an underscore in there. Weekly workflow. Again, this week we're talking about how do you adapt your movies, your screenplay to a movie or television or students over the semester. Some of those links have incredible amount of information. You could follow them on other links and other links and other links, especially the stuff from Studio Binder. I love Studio Binder personally. I think you can get almost a full education from that website alone, at least in context. And then to be able to come into a class like this and learn how to apply it or, learn what to specifically read, I think is a great use of that kind of outside knowledge. So definitely follow the links that you find in these. So specifically today, this week, like I said, we're starting to look at, what can we see in a difference and how do we adapt that writing. And one of the things I love about television, me particular, I love sitcoms. I love things like Friends, like Modern Family, shows where there's an ensemble cast and everybody is different in their own way and really contributes and adds to the show. Something like Seinfeld, Kramer is a character all to himself, So I'm really a big fan of looking at that for my writing and, when I'm watching stuff to adapt. So be sure to, look at your favorite television shows and see what it is that you really enjoy about them. Their recommended screening for this week is the holiday movies that made us. It's not available on a library, but if you have Netflix or you have a friend that has Netflix, if you're studying film, you should have Netflix, first of all. But, I understand not everybody can afford Netflix. So if you have access to it in any way, definitely screen this How the Holiday Movies That Made Us. It's really great behind the scenes information. And then if you have the ability, again, check out The Movies That Made Us is another Netflix title that's connected to that. They have all kinds of great movies from the 80s and 90s, behind the scenes information, how they got made, how they almost didn't get made. It's really astonishing to me that movies like Dirty Dancing, that is like a core quintessential movie from my growing up years. I literally watched it with every one of my girlfriends 100 times over, and to see that actually wasn't almost made is fascinating to me, because it's such a blockbuster and such a, like I said, an iconic movie to so many people. So there's really great information behind those. And again, I think it's an excellent way to look at something that's adapted to television, because these are all movies, but we're watching them on Netflix, which is a streaming service. They kind of are like television shows, but they're not exactly. They're just more like long format, television. Which is kind of interesting. And then they have whole seasons. I think there's 3 seasons of The Movies That Made Us. So it's a really interesting, really good study about, just looking how something like movies was adapted to a television show about movies. It's really like a total, like 40,000 foot, big picture in the looking glass, art replicating life, replicating art, replicating life situation with those narrative holiday movies that made us, and just the movies that made us. So if you can, I definitely recommend taking a look at those. And then I'll jump over to Canvas at the end of this video just real quick, and we'll cover the screenplay. But again, it should be in proper it should be in big picture, it should be in proper format, it should have nice solid structure like we've been talking about, and 5 pages, no more, no less. That is a constraint. I'm trying to see that you can write a beginning, a middle, and an end with good character development in 5 pages. In my day growing up, it was 25 pages that you wrote, the basic first 25 pages of screenplay. That's what most people read. Nowadays, I don't even think it's a page. Maybe you'll get an assistant that's reading 5 pages or something if it's really good. So you should be able to have that story set up in like 5 pages. And think about why. When you watch something on Netflix, how long do you give a new series? There's so many damn shows, right? You can easily just move on to the next one. Why are you going to waste, even 10 minutes on a TV show that you're like, this isn't kind of my thing, And then you give 10 minutes to something like, Bridgerton, or a show that you're just blown away by, and you're totally in on it. So you're going to keep watching more into that. So those first 5 pages are really critical these days, to really grab your audience. Think about what TV is, in modern times. Is TV, it's obviously still network television. That's still clearly a thing. But, TV, quote unquote, is, Netflix, it's Hulu, it's HBO. It's all of these streaming services that are coming up with their own versions of entertainment that are, really either replicating or replacing traditional television. This includes TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, all these sources of places where we watch entertaining video content that we wouldn't have before. Places that are, competing for our eyeball attention in ways that just were unheard of even a decade ago. So that's all of the kind of places that we're talking about, where you're going to adapt your writing to and just, hopefully find success, whether it's in 1 million followers on TikTok or a hit TV show or something else. There's an underscore in there. Weekly workflow again, Netflix or HBO or anything like that. Those are all avenues that we are looking at today. When we're specifically talking about writing for television, stories are typically written to be shot on sets. Seinfeld is written specifically. If you've ever gone to like the Warner Brothers behind the scenes thing, and you've seen the Big Bang Theory sets, you can tell that, the hallway with the broken elevator, Penny's apartment, Leonard's apartment, and Sheldon's apartment, whoever is in charge at whatever point in the series, right? But the apartments of all of the main characters are television sets that are all in one place to be filmed on. They're not going out on location. They're not going into the real world. They're not going downtown Atlanta like Walking Dead here with Rick jumping off the tank. They're not doing any of that kind of outside production. They're doing it all on studio sets. And so you have to keep that in mind when you're writing for television. You're writing to things to be shot in a set, for action to be taking place in Penny's apartment, something to happen, and Leonard to go over to his own apartment, or them all going down to the comic book store. You're writing to those specific things. And it's just something to keep in mind. And there's a link here to follow on more about sets too, if you wanted to follow some more about that. The dialogue is written for specific characters. Rick is specifically written a certain way. The other characters in Walking Dead are all like individuals that are driving those stories forward. When we're looking at Seinfeld, he's written a certain way for himself. Kramer is, George, Elaine, they're all individual characters. And the same can be said of any of your favorite shows. Watch them and look how those different characters are both written, the personalities they have, how they engage with each other, how they drive conflict with each other, how they resolve conflict with each other. All of those things are very unique to television in a lot of ways because the characters are typically very close, a tight-knit, community. And this is one of those things that you see blending and bridging in shows on Netflix. You look at something like Ozarks, and it's being told as if it's a movie with like this form of the drama and the dynamics of the structure. But the characters are almost like they're television show characters, and we're following them along on something, on an interesting hybrid. And this really started, if anybody remembers, back on HBO, and shows like The Wire, Sopranos, they all like started doing this new thing of taking like the Dallas old school, longer form television content and really turning it into like cinematic quality. It's not just the silly same plots every week like a soap opera. You have these really good cinematic style plots being told in story structure, but on this merger of like these almost a television, episodic format where you're writing for specific episodes. And that's certainly one thing one of the things to consider here. The scripts are shorter. On a television show, your scripts are either, typically about 30 minutes or about 60 minutes was the old way, but because of, time for commercials being input into those, you don't really have that so much anymore. So you kind of see them changing a bit. If you noticed on Netflix, they're actually they used to be like always 20 minutes because that's what a show was before, Now they tend to be, 30-minute shows or 60-minute shows is more and more where the streamers are going. So just keep an eye on where you're writing for, watch something there. And then, always remember that about a minute is equal to about a page of screenplay. It's obviously a very fluid thing. I teach a screenwriting, actual film production class too. And some of the students, they were supposed to do a 3-page script the other night for a 3-minute, screenplay, for a 3-minute of actual total runtime production. And one of them came up at like 4 minutes. And I said, what the hell happened? You were supposed to do 3 minutes. And he goes, yeah, but when we did the first scene, it was they enter the doctor's office and music is playing. And it's literally a one line on his screenplay. And it was a minute in actual total runtime in film. Because the character walks into this doctor's office and sits down and the music is playing. And it is extremely awkward. And they loved how awkward it felt. So they carried it on for a whole minute of screen time, which I felt was still a bit excessive because it's just a bit boring to watch somebody sitting for a whole minute. You could have accomplished the same thing to me in like 15 seconds or 30 seconds, somewhere around there. But it was really good. It was a really nice touch. And I did agree with the fact of letting it go a lot longer than, just a couple seconds of sitting in a doctor's office, because it really created this sense of tension and awkwardness that when the character actually engaged with the doctor, who looks up from the paper after a minute of just, reading a paper in front of the character. It really is a nice setup. So that's always something to think about. You just want, when you're looking at your script, remember about a minute equals about a page, depending on what's actually happening. But overall, that's what you can expect. So if you see a show that goes on for about, you watch something you really like on Netflix and it goes on for about 30 minutes, just remember you're going to need about 30 minutes 30 pages of actual screenplay. With television, there's 5 acts instead of 3 acts. And again, that boiled down to the way that the commercials used to be structured on television. It's not really like that anymore with streaming. So again, it's just something to think about when you're writing your structure. Do you want to stick with the 5-act or you want to go with the 3-act? Again, it comes down to watching shows for where you want to write, whether that's Netflix, HBO, or television, and then figuring out, is this a 3-act or 5-act structure? And we'll take a look at that here in a little second too. You can study it more in the next slide. stories are not typically resolved anymore on a individual episode. They used to be, where you had procedural shows where something was wrapped up and boom, that was it. And maybe you had a slight storyline carrying over, but the whole thing was wrapped up in one episode. Not so much anymore. You don't really see shows, unless you're looking at the police dramas. Those typically still do it. What is that called? True crime dramas like Crime and Punishment or, CSI type of shows. They typically still go to that format where something is resolved. Every now and then they'll have like a serial killer that they're chasing for a few episodes. But for the most part, it's just the main characters that are carrying over.
There's an underscore
not
there
the
on
actual
Instagram and
storylines.
Twitter.
Something like Walking Dead, which was on AMC. Every now and then they'll have like a serial killer that they're chasing for a few episodes. But for the most part, it's just the main characters that are carrying over.
There's an underscore there on Instagram and Twitter.
Something like Walking Dead, which was on AMC. Every now and then they'll have like a serial. They had done it a bit on The Wire and on Sopranos, for sure. I would say that's somewhere around there it was invented. And then certainly carried it over into things like Game of Thrones, where a whole book was adapted and those storylines were carried over, all the way through. And they played out over multiple seasons sometimes. They weren't even, resolved in a single season. Maybe one aspect was, but then other aspects were carried over, all the way going forward. And then we saw this with things like Breaking Bad, all kinds of other shows that really started coming out in that format as well. Walking Dead, certainly one of them. Here's a illustration of what I'm talking about when I say a 5-act structure versus a 3-act structure. You can see clearly that it's the same basic actions, of a play, happening where you have, different beginning, middle, and end. You have the blue, the red, and the green here. That's still the beginning of the middle. It's still, 3 sections of major action that is happening. But the way that we come up with the acts and where the conflict stops versus where it climaxes, where the falling action comes down, where the denouncement is, you just have a slight different variation in the overall structure. And you just have to be aware of that when you're doing television. How are those problems brought in? How are they resolved? How are they carried out throughout the overall structure of the writing? And then there's a couple links here for sure. If you're interested in this idea, follow both of those because there's really good information on them. Again, we talked about storylines with television. You have that A story, the B story, and then you have what's different from within a film. You have a C story. And the C story, sometimes you'll see them carried over in a sequel in movies, but you don't really often see them as common as you do in television. That C story is the zombies or the undead, whatever you want to call them in Walking Dead, right? But it's the element of the show that carries over from season to season, from episode. The main storyline of the core of the show will get wrapped up in a film, but you don't, and you might wrap up some of those elements in a TV show, but you don't wrap up the entire thing. Is the way to think about that. A plot device might keep the narrative moving. Where in a movie, Indiana Jones gets the relic at the end of the movie, and that's it. And then it's a different relic he's going to search for in another movie. Hopefully not the Crystal Skull. We don't need to see that again. But it's not the same thing that he's looking for that wasn't achieved in that wrap up of the film. Whereas in a television show, it can be multiple seasons of that MacGuffin, of that plot device being chased. You look at something like Dexter, and the idea that he's a serial killer. Which if anybody's seen the new one, give me a heads up if it's good or not, by the way, because I'm tempted to go watch it. I loved Dexter seasons 1 through 5, but I hated from 5 on, and I just couldn't even watch it anymore. So curious to see how that new one's turning out there. But these smaller arcs, all throughout the shows, and then a longer arc that carries out throughout a season with another arc that's possibly even carried out into multiple seasons. There's another great link here for writing with storylines over multiple seasons. One of the biggest things, again, that you can continue outside of this class is reading scripts. Before you can become a great writer, I think you need to become a great reader. And look at some of your favorite scripts. Look at the ones that people consider the best throughout history. I am a firm belieef that Chinatown is the best, one of the best, if not the best script ever actually written. So what is that for you? The only way you're going to know is if you go and read scripts. And we have unprecedented access these days. You know, you can come on these links right here and read probably almost all of your favorite scripts, I'm guessing. If you search hard enough, you can find just about anything on the internet. A friend of mine has a huge library too, so if you're ever looking for something, shoot me an email and I'll see if I can point you in the right direction as well. But, you know, when you're looking at these scripts, pay attention to the world. We've talked about this specifically over the semester. You know, building that world can go so far when you're writing the story and when you're looking for the plot to go. Setting all of that up, establishing the characters and how they interact in it, engaging the viewer and keeping them engaged is huge. And then always hooking them for the next episode. These are all key elements when you're looking at television shows. And again, Script Rope Reader, you can go on here and you can read all kinds of television scripts, and then there's all kinds of film scripts as well. And, you know, I highly recommend that you print out a few and look at the differences between a really great TV show you like and a film that you like as well. Really good info. When you're thinking about, television as well, we talked about this in film, you talk about it all over the place, really. You really have to think about genre. You're doing something on TikTok, even. You still have a genre of focus, what people are interested in. You know, you're talking about dance videos, or you're doing, cooking videos, or booty shaking, whatever the videos are about, right? Makeup videos. People are still within what we would call a genre. When we're talking about television, there's some big hitters in particular: drama, comedy, action adventure, and then horror thriller. And there's some great examples you can see just in the pictures alone that should highlight those. You also can get crossovers with them as well. Something like, I've got a picture there of Orange is the New Black, which is a drama, but it's really a drama comedy, or dramedy. I think the word is dramedy. A combination of the two, a fusion of both funny and comedic elements, but it's certainly like how funny can it be in a prison with women? You know, there's a limit of the comedy where the drama certainly takes over. And to me, it's one of the most incredible balances of both. Oftentimes people try it and it just doesn't work out. It doesn't hold, trying to tell both, but it certainly does in Orange is the New Black. Sorry, I got a message popped up on my phone. Oh, come on, you gotta be driving me crazy now. So action adventure, something like 24 is a perfect example to me of a made-for-television show that just works out great. And then another perfect horror example is American Horror Story. I think that is an incredible, especially some of the earlier seasons, which is absolutely phenomenal, what they're tying up in one episode and then one season. And of course, Modern Family, I think, is an absolute fabulous gem for comedy and how to do television really well and really tap into different demographics. All of those really great. When we're talking about television, you can't hide, doing a Bible, which is beyond the idea of just a script. A script is great, a treatment is great, but when you're doing a television show, you really want a Bible that goes through with a one-page pitch sheet, character descriptions, episode plan, overview of the world. You're kind of building, literally, it's called a Bible because you think of a Bible and it's a structured book that contains all kinds of different elements. And this video from Studio Binder, again, one of my favorites. Studio Binder video is incredible for.
Welcome back to Studio Binder's
TV show Bible. And then there's a link here that includes a template for you to be able to just like pull it up in Google Sheets and make your own. Just adapt it. Change the information to be your own. Really great. And then we did some pitching too. I don't think I put it in these slides, but we did one a few weeks ago about the Netflix pitching guide that I got from a friend of mine as well. Go back and look at that too and build those elements into your pitch deck or your Bible, depending whether you're doing television or film. Again, you can watch this video. I highly recommend it. I'm trying to skip through it here, but you can watch it and it's really good. Doing a TV show pilot specifically. Now we're talking about going beyond the Bible and actually, what's needed for a pilot. Sketching the script out and then actually filming a pilot of the first episode that's kind of going to set it all up. This one here, again, Studio Binder. It's from Breaking Bad. There's 2 videos here. I absolutely recommend watching both of them if you're interested in television and setting up a pilot episode of what goes into a television show. It's going to take me a little bit as I got to click through there because I've got both of the videos. Again, the screener is the holiday movies that made us. I know some people don't have access to Netflix. If you don't, see if you can find it with a friend. But this is a really great screener, I think, when we're looking at, something that's been the idea of movies, that they were out there into the world, and now somebody's adapted them into television shows by narrative description of what actually went on behind the scenes. So to me, one, learning all the behind the scenes stuff is absolutely fabulous, but then take a step back and look at what's actually happening, with bringing this older media to newer audiences that might then want to go back and watch the movie through this adaptation of films into an episodic television show that's about the films. Really think about everything that's happening on the bigger picture there. And again, it's a absolute great screener. There's some articles here. You can go and watch a video, articles about creating a world that feels true to your audience. Really great. I highly recommend that content. And then a brief summary here at the end. Just remember to go through this whole lecture. Don't just watch this and think that, it's good enough. Actually go through and follow all the links in particular. Any of the suggested readings that you might not have gotten to it over the semester, definitely go back and take a look at those. And then the final that's going to be due for the course is a 5-page screenplay. And let me see, I'll jump over onto Canvas and show you that. Just again, this is the actual final last class for this lecture and this video, and then turning in the screenplay next week is going to count as your final, and that will conclude it. And I highly recommend that you stay, you keep writing. Everybody in here has been doing a great job, for real. Like, totally keep writing, keep developing your stories, and just keep moving forward. That's all. I like to say that it's the whole process of writing and movie making, filmmaking is all about perseverance of attrition. Eventually, if you keep doing it long enough, you will succeed, because everybody else around you is going to fall out and fail or give up. And it's really my friends that are legit film screenwriters, movie screenwriters, have their own production companies. They all just kept at it, until that break finally came. My grandmother's definition of luck, which I'm sure she stole from somewhere, was that luck is where opportunity meets preparation. And I'm a big believer of that in my entire life. Everything that's ever come to me, all the elements of me being lucky in my life, from, leaving Boston, becoming a pilot in the Air Force, and becoming successful out here making movies in California, and then now teaching, is all come down to being, in the right place at the right time, but being prepared for the opportunity when it opens up. Because if you're not, and then it's a waste. It's like, winning the lottery, and then losing the ticket. To me, it's complete waste. So just keep positive, keep doing what you're doing, and if you enjoy it, and it'll work out eventually. So here in Canvas is the 5-page screenplay. It is due 10 December. I've got specifically some of the elements that I want you. I'll give you some example. Be sure that you're paying attention to formatting, the headers, or slug lines as they called. Interior or exterior is what I like to see personally. That is it, actually. Interior or exterior, period. Space, the location, classroom, school is good. You can get specific if you want, or you can do multiple levels of that, but there should just be a location. And then again, personally, I'm a fan of day or night. When you actually go produce some films and you see, midnight or twilight on a screenplay, well, if you've ever been outside at twilight and you watched quote unquote magic hour, it's maybe 5 minutes at most that the sun looks beautiful and glowing along the ground with that nice bright, golden color. You got it maybe 5 minutes in the morning, and you got 5 minutes at night when the sun sets. So to put that on a script, you really better, absolutely mean it that you want magic hour, because that is very difficult to get. So I personally, when I'm working with scripts, I like to see them that are either dash day or dash night, because it's probably gonna be one or the other, unless there's a specific, clear, motivated reason for it to be, what you're writing, or continuous. I'm good with that too. If you're already writing in day, you can keep doing continuous. But to me, why would you do that? That's a longer word than day, a longer word than night. Just write one or the other. But again, I don't take any points off for that. But I do like to see the scene headers. That's what you'll see out there in the professional world too. When it comes to the professional world, most people I know, literally 95% plus, are all using Final Draft as their writing software. You're welcome to use Celtics or Fade Up or Fade In or whatever the other software are. As long as you're getting it in the right format, that's really what matters. Some of you have not been. So I've given you comments. Make sure that you are going back and looking at a screenplay to see, the proper formatting. But if you're using something like Final Draft, it's going to put it in the right format for you. I know it is a bit more expensive, but if you're going to be a professional writer, it is the one to have. You can export the files from it into things like Movie Magic very easily, whereas you can do that with some of the other programs, but not so easy. So just pay attention to all of the constraints here that are listed on Canvas. Make sure you have a good title page. If you don't have a good title page, nobody's going to know how to get a hold of you. It's the first representation of what people see. And if there's no name or there's not a contact number, most of the times it's just going to end up in the trash. Nobody's even going to read it. It won't even move past that title page. So it seems silly and stupid that you're making a big deal about title page, but it really does come down to, whether or not even a screenplay will get read. So make sure all of your formatting is. I put some links in here again for you to look back on. Formatting a screenplay, writing a contained screenplay, an aspiring screenwriter's guide, just some information that you can look on to help you when you're writing. Me, I'm just looking for that you have a good story at this point, really. It's interesting. I read so many of them that I like them to be interesting, that something's happening with the characters. They feel like they're believable, that they're relatable, and that you've learned something from all of the movies that we have watched here. There's been so many that give great examples of all of this stuff. So I would hope that by this point, everybody comes up with a decent 5-page screenplay, because if you don't, then you really, if you don't feel like you're hitting the marks, it's just like, it's not fun, So I would take a closer look if that's something that you really want to do, if you're not enjoying it. All my film students, I really try to get them into a point where they're doing something that they enjoy, that they can get paid for, that somebody else recognizes value in, really. That trifecta is, to me, a place of happiness in life. When people are paying you for something that you like doing and you're good at doing. A lot of times we end up, being an Uber driver because nobody wants to pay us for our writing and we need to pay the rent, right? But ultimately finding a way out of that and getting paid for what you love to do or what you're really good at is the ultimate goal to me. And I do wish that for all of you, because again, the screenplays I've read over the semester are really good. And I do recommend, you keep writing, keep taking courses, keep honing your craft. And any chance you get to do something like the TV internships that come up, any kind of work to work on a friend's, small production, write a screenplay.